okay, this is what we're going to do. You are going to turn on your cam. You're going to sit down on the toilet. I'm going to watch you slowly undress yourself. You're going to go over to the sink, take your wife's hairbrush. You're going to whack your cock about 5 times for your insubordinance, for your inability to follow my fucking rules. And now you're going to sit down and you're going to watch porn. And I'm going to bring you right to the edge of fucking insanity. And then I'm going to deny you. Qu'est-ce que je vais te nommer? So I'm opening today's episode with, as they say in broadcast journalism, if any of you have studied broadcast journalism, any good news story or story starts with the 5 W's and 1 H. Who, what, when, where, and why. So we're going to start, and how. 5 W's and 1 H. That's it, yeah. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. Who am I? My name is Pamela, but I'm professionally known as the Violatrix. I am a 20-year findom, which means financial dominatrix. Now, this falls under the category of kink and fetish and adult content. Why? Who, what, when, where, why? Why am I doing the podcast? I'm doing the podcast because when it was discovered who I am and what I do, the popular medium platform that people were discovering me on was TikTok. And TikTok was not so thrilled about my content, so they took down several viral accounts of mine until I was forced to move to a different platform medium, which is what brings me to the podcast. When this all happened within the last 8 to 10 months, when it was discovered what I do for a living, because I had a very popular TikTok platform that dealt in strictly plastic surgery. And when it was discovered what I did, that became far more popular than speaking about plastic surgery. So that's the other part of this. Now, remember, my podcast series, this is episode 4. So we're 3 in that are up on Spotify and Apple. It's almost like an anthology series. If you're not following along, if you haven't listened to the others, please go back and hear the first 3, because a lot of this will not make sense to you if you're just joining on this one. And why also did I come out with this data? Well, that's a several-pronged answer. The first answer is that my father passed away a few years ago. For 20 years, my father was completely unaware that this is what I did for a living. I am in a very fortunate situation where I do not have to work. So it wasn't a situation where he was like, where's your money coming from type of thing, but it was very much underground. I remember a time where I moved back to Hershey and lived close to my father, and he was coming by every morning for coffee. And I finally had to look at him and say, Dad, I have a business. I work from home, and I talk over the phone with men about things that you probably wouldn't find aligned with your value system. So if that is not something that you want to talk further about, then you have to stop, kind of popping into my house unexpected. And that was the most that I ever addressed it. But coming out publicly in the way that I have with my book, The Financial Dominatrix, The Ultimate Financial Domination Guide, which, again, my followers on TikTok asked me to write this. I wrote this book in 10 days, very quickly. This book is not going to entertain you. If you're looking for this salacious tell-all story, the backstory, and all the nitty-gritty, disgraceful and disgusting things, salacious things that I see here and have my clients do, that will be my next book, and hopefully a Netflix series, if I am so lucky. But this book is really just for the women who want to learn how to do what I do. So the bottom line is, why am I coming out now with this? Why is this, at this late stage of my life, becoming popular? Well, again, because my father had passed away, so I have the freedom to come out with this. 2, again, if you watch my the other episodes, you know that my daughters had asked me to come forward because there were several women going viral on TikTok selling courses, scam courses saying that they were findoms, you can work from home, and they were selling bad information. I've had several women that came to me for a consult. They booked a consult through my website because they bought these scam courses and they were taken. And the bottom line is, my whole platform is women helping women. I'm not out here doing this to gain exposure, to gain fame. I have very little to actually gain from this. If anything, it's opened up myself and my family, my children to a lot of criticism and ridicule. But nothing will ever stop me from helping the women who want the information, need the information, because ultimately this is a perfect side hustle or, money-making opportunity for women who are in a tight spot. Women who are single moms, they want to work from home, they don't have to hire a babysitter, it's no overhead or low overhead, basically, actually zero overhead, and it was able to get me out of a tight spot, and these are the values that I espouse and what I want to be happening. So, and there's another reason why I came out with this, and someone underneath, I believe it was my Spotify podcast comment section, someone asked me to address this specifically. So I am going to address this. A few years ago, and this is a very cautionary tale. I want you to know that if you've ever seen my TikTok lives, this comes up a lot. This is for the women who want to learn how to do what I do. If you want to work in the adult industry, the 304 industry, PSO, phone sex operator, which is really what I am, if you want to be a cam girl, an OF model, or if you are literally in the full-service sex worker 304 industry, it would behoove you to tell no one. And this is the cautionary tale that I tell. When my older daughter, who is now 20, was about 5 years old, she was attending a Christian daycare in Hershey, Pennsylvania called the Fishburne Flock. And I had a woman who was her son was good friends with my daughter. And she was single, she was a single mom, she was struggling. And I said to her, well, I have a way for you to get out of your struggles and to help you make ends meet. And she's like, what is it? So I send her the link to my primary platform, whom I still work for. My primary source of income is from one specific platform, which shall remain nameless right now. And she was intrigued, and I told her some more information. About a week or so later, I found out that she had gone back and told all of the other mothers what I did. She had sent them my listing, which had they weren't X-rated photos, but there were some racy photos advertising my listing. And what ended up happening was I became kind of blacklisted. I became the black sheep of this Fishburne Flock, and the other mothers stopped inviting my daughter to birthday parties and outings, and we would be at the swimming pool and the women would be whispering and talking. So as I tell any woman who's considering doing this, don't tell anyone. Keep it to yourself. Don't try to help another woman unless you really know what you're doing. Or if you want to help a woman, just send her to me, the violatrix. Say, there's this woman on TikTok, Saint to Siren. She's on Instagram. She has a free masterclass on YouTube. But do not put yourself in a position where someone will be able to extort you. Which brings me to my last why reason of why I'm doing this podcast. Several years ago, I made a friend here in Vegas. I thought he was gay. I still think he's gay, but now I'm not really sure if he's gay, bi, or what he is. But he had a very petty jealousy towards me, which didn't really manifest. It didn't show itself till well into the friendship. So at the time, this was several years ago. This was like 5-6 years ago. My kids were younger, and I really liked doing my phone calls away from the house. So he was single and he had an apartment, and I would go over to his apartment. I would drink red wine and I would enjoy myself. And then he would get a kick out of me doing my phone calls in front of him. He also was in IT, so he was able to bring me some really phenomenal equipment, which had a great cam, because I not only do phone with my clients, I also do cam as well. So we would make a really fun evening of this. It was to the point where sometimes I was going over there 5 nights a week and utilizing his apartment and doing these fun phone calls. Well, at some point, I had a client named Joe in Chicago. Joe's not his real name. And Joe was kind of a weird guy. He would spend like 45 minutes telling me that I was the most beautiful thing on the planet. And then the last half an hour, he'd be like, oh, tell me, mistress, you're going to flog me with a BBC with a black man, and you're going to make this black man bend me over and do terrible things. Like, it would just immediately switch. And this person, we'll call him Benny. This person, Benny, really enjoyed listening to Joe's calls, and Joe spent a lot of money, and I'm $3.99 a minute. So the most of the clients that are calling me are very wealthy. Most of my clients are lawyers. Why? I'm not really sure what goes hand in hand with that profession. But Benny took it upon himself to go into his bathroom and use the mirror and point his phone at the mirror where I couldn't see him, and he was recording me. So at a point where Benny started exhibiting some less than copacetic, less than mannerly, gentlemanly behavior, I ended the friendship. When I did, he sent me a series of emails because I had blocked him, and he sent me a series of emails with the videos of me speaking to Joe, the attorney in Chicago, about his BBC obsession, me being recorded in a very unflattering light. I think I was more upset that I looked so shitty on camera than I was about him exposing Joe. But no, seriously, it was equally bad. Yeah, equally bad. But he had these videos, because he's in IT, he had these videos sent with it was ready to be sent to my daughter's school, the Meadows private school in Las Vegas, where we paid like $30,000 a year for my daughter to go. The guy from Imagine Dragons, his kids go there. The girl from Lee's Liquor, like the most prestigious families in Vegas, their children go there. My daughter was friends with them. And Benny had put the videos in the memo, in the subject line. It said, "This is the mother of one of your esteemed students," because my daughter is autistic and she is a genius, so she's very well known in that school. And in the video, he's about to press send on these videos that he took without my permission. Yes, they were in his apartment. So I said, what is it that you want? And he gave me his list of things that he wanted. This was the most full-blown extortion case I had ever encountered. So I tried to appease him. I tried to ask him to go to a notary with me when we settled things. And I said, go to a notary and say that you will never threaten my family again. He refused to do it. And it ended up in a very ugly situation. And I was able to press charges. The DA took the case and we went to court. Now, let me tell you how unpleasant this was. Not only did I have to face him in court a few years after this whole thing, and I lived with the fear that he was going to out me with these videos because he's in IT. He could have put my videos on an offshore server. He could have done anything. So the DA took the case. We go to court. This was last November. I ended up winning the case, but not before a massive amount of therapy and PTSD, again, not for my own safety and concern, but for my innocent children, my innocent family who had nothing to do with this. Benny had gone so far as to call my father before he passed away. My father was very ill at the time. He called my father's house. He had a very thick Israeli accent, so my father couldn't understand what he was saying. Well, to this day, we don't understand what he was saying, but he found my father's unlisted number. He found my brother and sister on Facebook and also sent them the videos. By this time, I had enough knowledge to say to my brother and sister, if you receive anything from Benny on Instagram or Facebook, do not open it because it could be a virus because he's in IT. So I was able to cover that. So nobody opened anything, and they all sent me the evidence. I won the case. And just so you know, and this is, again, where you don't want to end up in this, during my examination, my questioning from his lawyer while I'm on the stand, an entire high school class, they thought it would be a really good idea to bring a high school class in that day. So the high school class is sitting in the back of the courtroom. I'm sobbing, reading his emails. The prosecution, the DA had me reading these emails. You stupid bitch, cunt. You pay for this. And I'm reading all of this while the high school students are looking at me, staring at me. I've got makeup streaming down my face. In a bizarre twist of fate, he ended up taking the stand, which he never should have done, and he sunk himself completely by being a total misogynist to the judge, speaking out of turn, insulting everybody in the courtroom, and then claiming that he's not a U.S. citizen, so he doesn't understand the process. I won the case. I won it last November. I still have a restraining order against him. That restraining order lifts this November, where I am expecting the other shoe to drop. I'm expecting that because he never got to expose me in the manner that he wanted to, I'm expecting that to kind of drop this November. So this is a long roundabout way of me explaining to you, because of Benny trying to extort me, because my father had passed away And with the Benny extortion, it made sense for me to come out and have my narrative told, have it framed in the way I wanted it framed. Either I was going to control the narrative or Benny was going to control the narrative. I had no choice at this point but to come out with this because there, one way or another, he was going to out me. So my cautionary tale to you ladies who are listening to this and following me on my social media and taking my free YouTube masterclass is play it close to the vest like a poker player. Play your cards close to the vest. Don't tell anybody what you do. And if you are a single mother, remember first and foremost that anything involving the adult industry and the sex industry will compromise your family. So it should be kept very discreet. And I hope that helps. So did I get through the who, what, when, where, why, how? How I became a fandom, you have to watch or listen to the 3 previous episodes, and that gives you the whole thing on how. So I want to address another thing that's often in my comments. What is going on with my hair? I had very long hair, and then the day before I was scheduled to shoot this podcast, a very common Las Vegas thing happened to me. My hairdresser ended up in prison. So I very quickly switched and went to another hairdresser who said, your hair's damaged, we need to cut it off. So I ended up with very short hair. My clients went crazy. I came across like, what's that one girl on Charlie Brown, or on, not Charlie Brown. Well, yeah, the one nerdy girl on Charlie Brown, or the one on Scooby-Doo with the Velma. I looked like Velma on camera. So I was like, okay, that's it. We're going back to the long hair. So that's what's going on there. I did not plan on having all this change of look, but my hairdresser was in prison. So, and yes, I do have a new hairdresser. Thank you guys for asking. I forgot to mention in my last episode where I talked about my father not agreeing with me becoming pregnant at 33 and deciding to have a baby on my own, which is him ruining me, is what led to me ending up in the adult industry, trying to climb out of the welfare system, get myself off of welfare. I was working 2-3 jobs, and I fell into this by seeing an ad in the New York Times. I forgot to mention the reason why my father was able to do this to me was even though I just wanted a baby and wanted to be a single mother, which of course did not agree with him at all, I had no intention of getting married. My daughter's father was an Italian soccer player from Uruguay, South America. And when my father evicted me at almost 8 months pregnant, he subsequently, exactly with razor-sharp execution, he had my daughter's father arrested, held in INS detention, and then deported 3 months later. So that was an important piece of the story that kind of ties together why and how I ended up in the situation that I ended up in. He was deported, and then all we know is that he at some point went to Mexico and then he passed away. And the details surrounding that to this day are still a mystery. So that solves that. When you guys are listening to my podcast and you have questions, whether you're men that are following me because you would like a session, or you're one of my clients and you would like your story mentioned, please write comments under my Spotify podcast episode, and that will help me to organize myself for the next podcast so that I'm sure to hit everything that you want in content. I am only as strong with my content as the questions that you're asking me. I am a wealth of knowledge. I am a full Alexandria library level of wealth of knowledge of smut, filth, findoming, camming, OF, anything sex industry. But if you're not asking me the questions, I don't know what to cover, and I don't think to cover it. So you have to be active and tell me and ask me. And please never slide into my DMs. My DMs on TikTok and Instagram are a gauntlet of nightmares, of den of iniquity. I wanted to mention that my podcast studio here in Las Vegas, whom are amazing, owned by a gentleman named Trevin, and he has been 100%. Any success that I'm having, he's behind it. He's been holding my hand literally every step of the way. He had suggested to me that if I wanted to see a real professional podcast and see what goes on behind the scenes, perhaps I should reach out to the At Whatever podcast, which is hosted by a gentleman named, and gentleman, I use that phrase very loosely here. The gentleman's name is Brian Atlas. I want to first say that my intentions going in, bringing myself, my daughter, one of my students who is a full 304 full service sex worker, and my daughter's best friend, it resulted in the biggest bloodbath I've ever been a part of. I was annihilated verbally, aesthetically, emotionally. I tried to go head to head with this former Vine star, underground secret Republican or secret liberal who's pandering to his audience that he is a Republican. And I'm going to do a subsequent episode on this, and I might even bring people in. The two important points that I would like to make here. One is that if any young women are out there who are considering doing the At Whatever podcast with Brian Atlas and his skinny, probably, my guess is bisexual helper named Nick, because he was flirting with everybody that was involved on the set, men, women, it didn't matter. But if you're considering it, I want you to strongly reconsider it because it's the biggest bait and switch I have ever seen in the industry. And there was a time where I was a Hollywood talent manager for several years. I represented a few really big names in Hollywood, someone in the Sheen family. And I was a Hollywood talent manager also being a PSO worker at night, just so you know. It's not like I had multiple careers at different times. I've never stopped doing my PSO work. But I want you to know that someone who's very connected and adept in Hollywood and the ways of Hollywood, I've never seen anything like this shit show that the Whatever podcast was. I would strongly recommend any woman, young woman, older woman, woman of color who's considering going on that, really do your due diligence because it's a setup. And you will be told to come on for one topic, and then what you actually end up being asked about is completely out of left field. You'll be ill prepared for it, and it's set up that way completely misogynistically to make you look like an idiot. What he likes to do is bring on girls and make them look stupid, sound stupid, people that cannot match his level of conversation, his level of autism. And I don't say that with any disrespect because I'm married to someone with autism. I gave birth to someone with autism. I find autism to be a superpower. However, when it's used incorrectly, which is what he's doing, he should be shamed for it. So I want you to send this out to everybody that you can that's considering doing the Whatever podcast. And lastly, he is making a name for himself right now. He's capitalizing off the Charlie Kirk name. He says that Charlie Kirk was one of his best friends. And I want to be very clear that no best friend of Charlie Kirk's that loved and cared for him would be asking the girls in the podcast who are clearly full-service sex workers about Charlie Kirk, okay, bringing his death into this. And one girl likening Charlie to Hitler. Now, this girl was confused and she was young. And Brian Atlas used this young woman's comparison of Charlie Kirk to Hitler as the soundbite and the title of his YouTube channel. So the fact of the matter is, Charlie is kind of hanging on for, grim death onto whatever's left of the Charlie Kirk legacy of him being on his show. He's pandering, he is exploiting, and he is absolutely muddying the memory of Charlie by even allowing such things to be said on his podcast. I want you to take a good look at that, because does that sound like somebody who is holding his esteemed friend and colleague and political adversary in high regard, high esteem? Doesn't sound like it to me. So Brian, I hope you're watching this. I hope you know that I am coming for you, double barrel both. I am so ready to come at you with the same fervor and vapid reasoning that you came at me with and the word salad. So just be ready, because I'm coming for you. Fucking asshole. There was a big New York Times post last week on Instagram, and it was talking about a doctor in the UK. His name was Dr. Neil Hopper, age 49. And his sexual fetish was having his legs amputated. And he did so successfully after a combination of submerging his legs for 8+ hours in a combination of dry ice and then warm water and back and forth, I believe, until his legs manifested this combination of what probably looked like gangrene, and then had his legs amputated. And then I believe the controversy didn't come in at the fact that he was getting off by being legless because that was his fetish. The controversy came in because he tried to make insurance pay for his leg removal, and he's trying to cash in with insurance. So the false insurance claims, I guess, are what did this guy in. But I want you to understand something that's very important. There is a kink, a fetish for almost anything that you could think of. And when I do these podcasts or when I am talking on social media, I want a very clear distinction between the fact that I know a lot about fetishes and kinks, many of which are now banned in the USA and most countries, except for probably Germany. Germany allows everything. But just because I know about them, I've spoken to men about them, and or have seen them on camera, does not mean that I support all of this. And that was one of the things that Brian Atlas was, able to come at me about, was that I am, supporting the sex industry and the degradation. I had my nails done yesterday, and the woman was saying, you need more Christianity. And I was like, no, I'm good. I'm very Catholic. And my great-grandfather founded the Bible Baptist Church in Passaic, New Jersey, which still has a thriving congregation today. This has nothing to do with religion. This is out there. Who are my clients? Who is interested in this stuff? Clearly, this doctor in the UK. Lawyers, surgeons, the guy next door, your boss, your top employee. And the kinks and fetishes are widely varied. So do I support all of them? Absolutely not. Do I have my hard limits? Absolutely yes. Right off the top, I can tell you without even having to say it. Obviously, anything that deals in age play is a hard no, but I shouldn't have to say that. Blood play, anything bathroom play, and what's my third? Blood, bathroom, and drugs used to be a hard line for me, but I can't be a hypocrite. Until a few years ago, I had an Asian gentleman from San Francisco. Ironically, he also was a lawyer, and he booked me for 3 days. It was like $4,000 a day for 3 days. And I didn't know what he was doing. I'd never seen meth, smoke. I didn't know what you do with meth. So it wasn't until like a day into this 3-day extravaganza with this guy, this nonstop rant of phone and cam sex for him, that I realized, I was like, what is that? He's like, it's meth. So my advice to you would be, if you are dealing in clients who deal in drugs, make sure you ask what they're on, how they're going to be doing it. Because I had a hard line about no drugs, but the meth lawyer kind of threw that out the window. And I honestly, I wouldn't say that I certainly did not enjoy it. I almost died after each day of phone calls, because someone who's on drugs will run you into the ground. They talk nonstop. As a matter of fact, I'm going to bring up my one client in Australia. I'm not going to say his name, but I have a very successful client in Australia whom I probably talk to as often as I block him. I know you're watching. I know you're listening. I know you were curious if I was going to cover you. Say, yes, I am. I adore this guy to pieces. He gifts me and spoils me on levels I cannot tell you. But he often enjoys doing cocaine on our calls. And of course, he's trying to hide it from me. Now I know better. But when these guys are doing meth or cocaine, they become superhuman in their ability to stay awake, stay stimulated, talk a blue streak. So just know that if you're going to be getting into a client like that, or you're going to be allowing it, you have to expect erratic behavior. You have to punish them for their for any time that they step out of line, any time that they are insubordinate or not speaking, behaving, acting in the manner that a good submissive should. So know that. But again, getting back to my hard lines, the drugs was a hard line before, but now some are slipping through with it. But it also brings me to a client that I had recently. I think I had mentioned to you guys in a previous podcast. I've turned down 2 clients in the last month that had force feeding addiction fetish, which is where they want me to force feed them greasy pizza, like eat a whole sleeve of cookie, eat a whole, box of donuts, and force feeding them, and them becoming so slovenly, zaftigly, morbidly obese. That is the obsession. I cannot deal with that because I feel like I would be burning in hell. Like I'd be going straight to hell with that addiction. I never had like a skinny guy come at me and be like, I have a force feed addiction. It's always a guy who is like minimum 300 pounds. So typically what I would do is ask for their height, weight, and age, and I'd put it in a BMI calculator. And I'm like, no, you're like 1 donut away from a heart attack, and I'm not having blood on my hands. So I do turn those down. I also had a gentleman in the last few months who lives in Santa Barbara, very wealthy man, older man, and he came at me with something that I had never had any experience in. And this is called sounding. And this, when he called me and began explaining that he likes to stick things in the tip of his urethra, which is the opening of your penis where you pee from, I was like, okay, can you tell me a little bit more? And as he was talking, I remembered being in the Love Store in Vegas a few years ago, which was right next to my plastic surgeon. So I went in to see what kind of like boudoir nightgowns they had. And boy, oh boy, they had this glass case with these instruments, these medical instruments. They looked like, if you ever see like a nutcracker set that has the little pointy poker thing that gets like the really hard to reach parts of the nuts, a walnut open. That's what they looked like. And they were gold and they were silver and they were, again, behind the glass. And I said to the girl, what is this? And she's like, oh, that's for medical play. And I was like, what does one do with this? She's like, oh, that's inserted into the urethra. And I'm like, I didn't think I had ever had a client who wanted it. Well, this gentleman did. And he wanted to do it for me on cam. I couldn't quite stomach that. But I used that phone call as a learning lesson for me, and I asked him a lot of information about the sounding. So these gentlemen are fetishists, kinksters, clients that would like, they derive intense pleasure from sticking something, from sounding, sticking something inside their urethra canal in the penis. So is that something I deal with typically? No. And I was mentioning this to someone recently. If you know anything about, if you've watched my YouTube videos, you know that I am not a dominatrix. I'm not a classic dominatrix. I am not here to beat you with whips and chains and put on a strap on and fuck you in the ass or fuck you in the mouth, which is, of course, something that all of my clients request. And when a fantasy goes there, I am very clear with my clients that if you even want to talk about me fucking you in the ass or in the mouth, it's actually going to happen. I'm going to outsource it in the fantasy. So yes, we're in a hotel suite and I am drinking, a $500 bottle of champagne and I've got my stilettos on and I'm shoving it in your mouth. I'm kicking you in the back. I'm kicking you to the floor. I'm, spitting in your mouth. I'm slapping you across the face. But there's a ring at the door, a knock on the door, and that's going to be the full-service sex worker who's coming to ram you in the ass, or the guy that I just connected you with off of Tinder or Grindr, or I put an ad on Craigslist and there's a bevy of men waiting out in the hallway to have their way with you in every orifice in your body. I outsource it even in fantasy. There will never be a time that you will hear me say, oh, let me go get my strap on and fuck you in the ass or the mouth. That's not my thing. I am more, and overall, I'm more of a sensual dom than a sadistic dom. Do not mistake me, though. Do not get mistaken. I can be very sadistic, especially when it comes to my blackmail extortion play clients. That is one of my absolute favorites, where I go and find their wives on Facebook, or I have their wives' email. And then we used to use this thing called TeamViewer, where I could take control of their desktop computer and I could drain their bank account while they're watching, or I could go into their wives, send their wife and whatever. But blackmail and extortion, I can become very nasty, violent, sadistic with that particular fetish. Excuse me. But overall, I do not tend to be, I'm not the dom who's going to strap you to a cross, strap you in the bathroom, give you the swirly, fuck your mouth with a big, 12-inch strap-on dildo. If you are coming to me for that, you've got the wrong dom. I had mentioned in my Instagram, I had a clip of a client talking about a client that came to me because he went on a camping trip with his friend when he was a teenager, and the friend's father had molested him, had sexually assaulted him as a young boy. And this particular client used to call me to kind of work through that scenario because unfortunately it still turned him on, and that was a big source of conflict for him. So I had a potential client, I had a gentleman see this on Instagram and wrote right under the Instagram post, "This happened to me. I was abused by my stepfather. How can I reach you?" And I was like, please don't slide into my Instagram. Just don't bother Instagramming, like inboxing me on Instagram. I'll never read it. But I said, go to my website. He went to my website. He booked that session so quickly. And he was, can you do it now? Can you do it now? And I was like, actually, no, I don't have time. But he was so insistent. So I said, I'll tell you what, I will take the call in an hour and let me get the data. This guy was 44 or 46 years old. He lives down south. He's a black gentleman. So I'm going to say something right now that my podcast studio owner, Trevin, may have to edit out. It may make it in. This is going to be up to him. But I'm going to say something that is going to be so controversial, it could get me canceled immediately off the internet. This client, when we did the session, he said, I want you to call me the N-word often. And again, he's a black gentleman. I want you to be a plantation owner. And I want to be working the fields, living in the barn, working in the slave quarter, living in the slave quarters. And I want you to abuse me. And typically, this is not my first black client with a fetish, with a kink, to be called the N-word and to be abused by myself, the white plantation owner, which is like hilarious because like no one in my family history would ever have been accused as being a plantation owner. Like typically you'd find the blonde, blue-eyed, mistress for that. But they want me to be married to the housemaster, of course, and then the housemaster and myself abuse this client. I don't think you will find a findom, a femdom, a domina, a dominatrix who's going to admit to this. And what this gentleman said to me is, when he told me, I want to be your slave and I want you to use the N-word over and over again, I was like, oh, I know exactly what you want because I've had clients have this before. Typically, these are black men, but I've had a few white men want to role play as this. Go figure. And no, it's not my Jerkin for Jesus client. If you don't know about my Jerkin for Jesus Bible Belt client, you're going to have to watch the previous episodes. But we did the slave master, the plantation mistress role play. And he was, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, like the whole thing. And he was really into it. And then when we were done, I said, let's talk about this. And I encouraged him to see a traditional therapist because, again, if you guys don't realize, I do not have a master's in psychology. I am not a psychiatrist, an MD. I have no professional training. I have 30 rough years of my own therapy that I bring to the table, and I'm very self-aware. But I am not a clinically approved and trained therapist, although many have used me as such. So, and this is an important thing that I want to bring to the table, that this gentleman had been abused by his stepfather, and it was manifesting in a way that he wanted to be abused by me. It kind of dovetailed, or it kind of incorporated the racism theme. And one of the things that he said to me was, my stepfather was very black, and he was very big, and he walked around. I guess this would have been the 70s, the late 70s, early 80s, given the gentleman's age. And he said, my stepfather was hung like a horse. So when you incorporate all of these details, now you have a strong black man who was not related to him, who was abusing him, who walked around the house naked. So you see the themes of childhood trauma. You see the themes of seeing a grown man naked with a big, giant cock that you've never seen before, and now something is stirring in this pre-pubescent adolescent that is stimulating the senses in a way that they hadn't seen before. The strength, the dominance, coupled with the abuse, is the perfect cocktail for creating a completely fucked up sexual dysfunction individual who will forever intertwine and not be able to separate out the abuse from the race, from the sexual confusion, from the need to be accepted and loved. All of it is the perfect cocktail to make a monster. And in this case, what brought him to me was that his girlfriend of many years has no idea about this, which I encouraged him to, A, get traditional therapy. He may continue talking to me, but get traditional therapy. And once you're in therapy, begin mentioning to your girlfriend about the abuse you sustained from your stepfather. And that's going to be the best way to move forward with this, because it's not something you can carry alone. And the human mind doesn't like repression. The human mind gets its calling card. All dues will be paid to the human mind in any trauma and suffering you suffered as a child. Eventually, they will come to the front, and one way or another, the human mind will make you deal with it, and his is coming out now. And the reason he said it's coming out now is he said that his need for abuse porn was getting out of control. Something that a lot of men don't know about, and a lot of women who follow me, this is a favorite when they discover that I do this. Something that I do is called silent calls or ignore line. So ignore line is when a client, a submissive man, wants to, he finds you so alluring, so beautiful, so powerful that he does not feel worthy of your time or attention. And again, remember, this is what is all the kinks and fetishes that I deal with. They're all steeped in the man wanting to be oppressed, wanting to be submissive to this beautiful, strong, intelligent, powerful, wealthy woman. And what's funny is, as I've gotten older, I've gotten more popular. I had no idea. My husband and I got in an argument during COVID, and I was like, I need more cash. And he's like, you want more cash? Go back to PSO work. I was like, you got it, motherfucker. You got it. And when I went back, I was like, oh, damn. I was more popular than I ever had been in my 30s. I was like, in my 20s and 30s, I was like, this is crazy. But the clients are getting younger and younger. And what I find now is 20-somethings are actually calling me. I mean, the 20-something generation is a, hang on, my bangs are all fucked up. The 20-something generation right now is a whole different animal than any of the preceding generations. They seem to be very in touch with who they are, not afraid. They're out and proud, and it's not shrouded in dark shadows and mystery the way most of my, say, Gen X clients or even millennial clients are. And by the way, I have found very commonly that when a man gets to about 35, a man who has a kink, a fetish for being teased, denied, dominated, extorted, blackmailed, CBT, cock and ball torture, pantyhose fetish, foot fetish, whatever the fetish or the kink is, when they get to about 35, 40, that's like the sweet spot. They've had their kids, they've spent 20-some years in a vanilla marriage, and they're like, oh shit, my time on this earth is now winding down. I need something for myself. And those guys that are in the 35 to 40 range, those those guys will spend insane amounts of time and money. So if you get a client, this is why it's always important to vet your clients. But getting back to my silent calls and my ignore line. So an ignore line is when you literally pick up the phone and you say nothing to them, and then you put the phone down and you go about your day. You're watching shows, you're streaming, you're doing laundry, you're cooking dinner, you're out for cocktails with your girlfriends, you're shopping, and they are just paying, in my case, $3.99 a minute to be ignored. Yes, that is a fetish. Silent calls are where my client will say to me, "Oh, mistress, please send me an audio, send me this or send me that." And I'm like, I don't work for you. You're not in charge of me. Well, my wife is sitting here right now. You can't what? Get your fat ass up, walk to your bathroom, call me right now. Don't say a fucking word. Sit on the phone or on your Bluetooth and listen to every word that I have to say. So they will call me and I will answer the phone and I'll say, "Hello. Okay, this is what we're going to do. You are going to turn on your cam, whether it's Discord or whatever it is, or we used to use Skype, but Skype outlawed. They banned adult content. You're going to sit down on the toilet. I'm going to watch you slowly undress yourself. You're going to go over to the sink, take your wife's hairbrush. You're going to whack your cock about 5 times for your insubordinance, for your inability to follow my fucking rules. And now you're going to sit down and you're going to watch porn. And I'm going to bring you right to the edge of fucking insanity. And then I'm going to deny you." Or whatever it is, whatever sadistic mood I'm in. But that's a silent call. Where he calls me, he says nothing. So if a client is saying, "Well, I can't right now, I'm in a meeting," or "I'm in that," no, the fuck you're not. Put me on silent, put yourself on mute, on silent. No one needs to know. So I have these clients so well trained, like Pavlovian level, like Pavlov's dog, that they will be sitting in an armchair next to their wife, like feet from their wife, and I am bullying them, I am dominating them, and they're saying nothing. And that is a silent call. So there's never any excuse for these men to tell you, "Oh, I can't right now," or this or that. I often, if they tell me, "Oh, I'm busy at work," or whatever the excuse is, that's where I'll tell them, "Okay, I want you to go find an indelible marker right now, and you're going to put me on cam, and you're going to go into the bathroom, and I want to see your Apple Watch with a timestamp so that you're not sending me old content." So I'll make them do something with a timestamp or something that shows it is actually in that moment. I'll make them write my name, the violatrix, on their cock. And a lot of times, because these guys have micro dicks or micro penis, there's not enough room to write it. So they have to sit in the bathroom, make themselves as long and hard as possible, which never happens. And they have to write my name, the violatrix, and then they have to hide from their wife for the next few days because my name is written on their cock, an indelible marker. I have all sorts of little games and things that I do. It just depends on the client. But if they give pushback, if they are not completely docile, obedient, and following the rules that I set forth, there are huge punishments. And that can be anything from, a lot of them don't have toys at home because their wives don't know that they're doing this. So I usually make them go into the kitchen on cam because I don't trust them. They're big schemers and liars. I make them go in the kitchen on cam and grab like a spatula, whack their ass with a spatula, or find something to, I don't want to get too graphic on here. And it's not that I don't want to give up my secrets, but you'd be surprised you'd be surprised at the tricks and games, sadistic ones, that you can do with various kitchen appliances and paraphernalia. A kitchen is a cornucopia of torture devices, gifts that keep giving. So be open to that. Be creative. Creativity is your best friend in this industry. Sniffies and grinder. So I have often clients that, I had a client one time, like sniffies. I have a very wealthy CEO in Florida who's engaged to a Southern belle. And this is the best story. This guy, he goes on sniffies and he plays and he basically JOs, he jerks off on sniffies for other men. And he's a good looking older guy. But he's a sissy. He likes dressing up. He likes wearing panties and corsets and heels and being just annihilated by bigger men, younger men. So this guy goes on camera and he will invite men over to his house and get involved in all sorts of things. So nonetheless, the Southern Belle, his fiance, had some gay friends, and they found his profile on Grindr. So he called me at one point. He reached out to me, and I said, "Where have you been?" He said, "Oh, my girlfriend's friends outed me. They found me on Grindr." I said, "Did she leave you?" He said, "No." I said, how did you get away with this? And he said that he was able to tell her that, he's got some dark fetishes, and from time to time he likes to play, but he's never met anyone in person, and it doesn't go any further. He got himself out of it. She believed it. Lock, stock, and barrel, she fell for this line. But I was like, man, like that's getting yourself busted on Grindr. That's pretty bad. So I often have clients that I will make them put an ad on Grindr, put a profile on Grindr. And I had this one guy one time. He was in Long Island, and he was calling me, and oh, I'm so horny. Oh, I need to be abused by BBC. And he was blowing up my phone, blowing up my platform, and I had enough of it. So I said, it was like it was early in Las Vegas time, but it was late back east. It was maybe like 9, 10 o'clock back east. I said, you're going to put a profile on Grindr right now, and you're going to go find a black man to meet you. And sure enough, he did. And he told his wife he was going out for milk. And he went to the grocery store, the local grocery store parking lot, had me on cam. So I watched the whole thing. Met this black gentleman got in the back of the black gentleman's van and serviced him with me on cam the whole time. I didn't think he would actually do it. I was just trying to shut him up, but he did it, and he did it quite happily. And then the black gentleman that he met also told his wife that he was going to the store. So for those of you ladies that, your husband's going out 9, 10 o'clock at night and he's going for milk, I'm just telling you. So I have a client who likes to be forced to throw up. He likes to drink quarts of milk and then be forced to throw up. He also wants to be strapped to a cross and beaten in the process. He also likes swirlies. Like sometimes I play like high school cheerleader bully. I was a high school cheerleader, so that role is easy for me, but I was certainly not a bully in high school. Rich girl, yes. Popular girl, yes. Bully, absolutely not. But he likes me to play the popular cheerleader dating a football player, and then, I have all the football players grab him by the back of his neck and throw him in the bathroom and give him a swirly. He's begged me to give him swirlies in person, and I'm like half tempted to do it, but he's only in California. But the bottom line is I send him to a dungeon in Woodland Hills called Venus and Bells. I think the partnership of the two dominoes just broke up, and I think Venus and Bells just split off. I'm not really sure what the current status is. But also the black gentleman that called me for the slave play, he was asking me to find him a dungeon in the greater Atlanta area. So one of the things that I will do, because I don't do IRL in real life, is that I will hook up with local dungeons and then, work with local dominas to give these men everything and anything they want. And sometimes I will be on cam, or I will be there for the session type of thing. So that is a service that I do offer. So I am not beating people I'm not strapping people to crucifixes and beating them. I'm not having them throw up on my feet. And anything that involves, could I pee on a client? Maybe, but again, anything that deals with the potty play really grosses me out. Like, for the right amount of money, could I pee on someone? Probably. Maybe not. I don't know. But any of that stuff I outsource. And like I said, even if it's the fantasy of strapping something, the idea of me strapping something to my body, like an erect dildo dong penis, I can't even get my head around like pulling that up over my thighs and I just can't even get my head, no, because I am as feminine as they come, despite the fact that 80% of the men commenting on my Instagram are like, how do you hide your cock so well in your lingerie? Most people think that I'm trans. When I was in college in 1991, I went to Point Park College in Pittsburgh, and I didn't realize it was a huge dance and liberal arts school. So a lot of the guys were gay, and I became friends with all these guys. And there was a gay bar down the street on Liberty Avenue, this scummy section of Pittsburgh. This is 1991. It was please, there were no rules. So I would sit with everybody's IDs, all my girlfriends. I was like, come on, we're going to the gay bar. And I would sit with whiteout and foundation. I would change a black marker, whiteout and foundation. I would change the dates of all of our IDs. And then we would go to Pegasus on Liberty Avenue. And I'll never forget one of the first, now I'm 18 years old. This is 1991. One of the first times that we went in there, we're drinking. It was great because it's all gay men. There's no straight men. It's all gay. Well, there probably were straight men, but it was all gay men. And back then I had 34 double D boobs. I've had 2 breast reductions since, but I used to have these huge boobs, and this kind of, drag queen walked up to me, and he was like, oh, honey, and he squeezes my boobs. He goes, oh, honey, how did you get them to look so real? And I was like, they are. So being accused of being trans, that not only, for those of you coming for me, doesn't insult me, doesn't hurt me, and frankly, it's a compliment because the trans women are the ones that take the most pride in their appearance. So it's a flex. My daughters even tell me, Mom, we get called that all the time because we have deeper voices. We have strong Mediterranean, Middle Eastern jawlines and strong noses. So don't be offended by it. So I'm not. But also, one more quick thing, and we'll end on this note. If you see on my Instagram, a CEO of a medical device company, a biomed company, came for me this week on Instagram and tried to shame me he was asking me, where is your penis? Because clearly you're a man, but I don't see the bulge in your corset. I have this one series of me in a red corset and thigh-high stockings. Not something I would typically put on Instagram, but my Instagram is relatively new, so I had to cater and pander to the salacious sex crowd to get some traction on my Instagram, and it worked. But it's absolutely not how I walk around every day. But he came after me, so I made him the cautionary tale of why you don't come after me on social media. If you come after me on social media and try to shame me, I will spend all of my time finding out who you are, where you work, what you do for a living, because I have all the time, money, and passion to sue people and to get revenge on anybody who is not being nice, okay? So again, my platform is for women helping women. If you're a man, be a client or be a fanboy, but don't come at me as some man on the DL, who clearly you are on the DL. That's why you were looking. If a man slides in my DMs and says, are you trans? What I know now is they're saying, I hope you're trans. So go to my Instagram and see this post. It's 3 posts down. And Michael Mesmed, or whatever your name was, I hope you enjoy that. I also reached out to no less than 40 doctors in New York City with whom you work, sending them the screenshot of what you said to me about my lack of a dick bulge in my corset. I hope you enjoy. Let that be a cautionary tale.